Have you ever noticed that Jewish homes have a little box attached to the doorpost? It's a slanted box on the outside of the home and sometimes on doorposts of interior rooms. This little box is called a mezuzah, and it's one of the amulets that Jews have used throughout history to bring protection to themselves. The mezuzah didn't start out as an amulet. It began as a small box affixed to the doorpost of the home in fulfillment of the commandment to write the Shema on the doorposts of your home. Originally, the mezuzah contained a scroll with two passages from Torah, and that's all that was on the scroll and all that was in the box. Two passages from Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4 through 9 and Deuteronomy chapter 11 verses 13 through 21. The text reads as follows: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you today shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them thoroughly to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. And it will be, if you will diligently obey my commandments, which I enjoin upon you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. I will give rain for your land at the proper time, the early rain and the late rain, and you will gather in your grain, your wine, and your oil. And I will give grass in your fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be sated. Take care lest your heart be lured away, and you turn astray and worship alien gods and bow down to them. For then the Lord's wrath will flare up against you, and he will close the heavens so that there will be no rain, and the earth will not yield its produce, and you will swiftly perish from the good land which the Lord gives you. Therefore place these words of mine upon your heart and upon your soul, and bind them for a sign on your hand, and they shall be a reminder between your eyes. You shall teach them to your children, to speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, when you lie down, and when you rise. And you shall inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your children may be prolonged on the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give to them for as long as the heavens are above the earth. Sound familiar? That is the Via Hafta, which is prayed along with the Shema. Now, over time, however, the mezuzah began to take on a more mystical and amulaic flavor. And while many argue that the command above was the beginning of the use of mezuzot, there are others who argue that the practice of placing a charm on the doorframe was commonplace in many cultures in the ancient Near East. As time went on, more and more additions were made to the scroll. These additions began with the name Shaddai, often on the reverse of the parchment. Later additions came to include Kabbalistic drawings, names of angels, charms, and spells. The use of the mezuzah as an amulet was widespread in Jewish culture throughout the Middle Ages up to the 14th century. But it didn't start there. We can infer from the Talmud that some of the sages believed that the biblical promise of a long life depends upon the observance of the mezuzah. And just as the amulet status of the mezuzah began early, it's still going on. We see that Rabbi Schneerson, the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, taught that the mezuzah had protection powers, and that every kosher mezuzah that is affixed on a doorpost of any Jewish home anywhere adds to the protection of all of our people everywhere. During World War II, many of the Jewish soldiers carried mezuzot in their pockets to deflect enemy bullets. And today it has become a popular watch charm among Jews. And many carry mezuzot in their cars, in their pockets, or wear them as necklaces and bracelet charms. But what is it that makes the mezuzah an amulet? Well, one is simple belief that it is an amulet. But traditionally, there were 18 details surrounding the preparation of a mezuzah, and they closely parallel the making of Jewish amulets. Having the scroll affixed to the doorpost was seen as a method for ensuring prosperity, fertility, and long life. And most importantly, the scroll must be kosher for the mezuzah to be effective. At various times when negative things would happen, It would be blamed on the person not having a mezuzah on their doorpost, or that the mezuzah was ineffective due to its non-kosher status. And many times a person was urged to have their mezuzah checked to ensure it remained kosher after negative things happened. So what makes a mezuzah kosher? The scroll must be made of handmade parchment crafted from a kosher animal. It must be inscribed in black ink with a special quill pen, and each of the 713 letters on the scroll must meet the thousands of laws pertaining to their form. Even one letter being off will make the entire scroll, and thus the entire mezuzah, non-kosher. Now, while I mentioned that some Jews today still believe in the magic of the mezuzah, many others believe themselves to be rational and above such superstition. Such Jews believe that a God who would punish someone for not having a kosher scroll is no God worth belief. I argue, however, that God doesn't punish us for not having a kosher mezuzah. Instead, we simply don't have the magical protection that comes from having one. The misfortune that may fall doesn't come from God. It just comes, and the lack of a proper mezuzah means that it's not stopped.